So true story. When I was a little girl, probably around no older than 4 and maybe a little younger, I stood on top of an anthill unknowingly, and this was a red anthill. So these were called fire ants. It was in Southern California, and these ants came crawling all up my legs, and my older sister remembers seeing them actually crawling in my eyes and ears and nose, nostrils, and in and out of my mouth. They were covering me, and the only memory I have of it is just standing there screaming and ants crawling up my legs. That's all I remember, and my mom coming running out. I remember as a little girl, I didn't feel real safe because I had a very chaotic, crazy home life with a father who probably could be diagnosed with MPD, and who was an alcoholic and very religious at the same time. Was involved with a pretty notorious cult. So I was very fearful as a child. And I remember one time, at least one time, probably more than one time, just being out playing in the neighborhood and then running home because I would see a flying red ant, and I would literally be running home, going like this the whole way, thinking that they were all over the place and terrified of these ants. And this was, following my experience with the ants crawling up my legs. So probably about maybe 10 years ago, I was in my backyard and I was digging in some dirt, probably doing some gardening work. And I suddenly jumped up and started going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, and slapping the ants off my legs and just freaking out. There's ants, there's ants, there's ants. And my husband looked over at me like, what is going on? And then when I settled down and calmed down and looked around, there were no ants anywhere. It was dirt. And I had seen ants coming up my legs. So the other day, I'm in my garden, and we have been getting these ants up near the barn. And we've always had black ants over here. We haven't had red ants, but these ants are red and black, and they're big. And I was digging in my garden the day before yesterday, getting ready to plant a row of cantaloupe, trying to get this soil ready so I can get my little cantaloupe seedlings into the ground. And lo and behold, I dig, and there are these big mother sucker red and black ants all crawling all through there. But I didn't have the same reaction as like I did with the dirt on me, or when I would have it in the air as a little girl. But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting out of here, I'm not messing with this kind of thing. But when I started walking back away toward the house, away from the garden, I noticed I was super jumpy, and like something would fly by me. I was freaking out, and I was having another reaction to ants. It was interesting to me, and I stopped and thought about it. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm having a PTSD reaction again. I've got tons of anxiety. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this video, is these PTSD reactions that we have. Sometimes they're just obvious PTSD reactions to something that we can directly link it to, like I could the ants. When I brushed off all that soil off my legs and finally calmed down and realized there was no ants there, it reminded me, brought back to me the memory of those ants crawling up my legs. And I thought that's why something happened, something switched in my brain. It was really, really weird, because it was just dirt. There wasn't an ant to be seen, not in the dirt, nowhere. So it was a really weird experience. That's how PTSD affects us. We have triggers, and a lot of times we don't have enough compassion on ourselves. When we're having a trigger, when we're triggered about something, we a lot of times ask, what's wrong with me? Why can't I pull it together? And the reality is, I had a therapist tell me one time that a person never truly gets over trauma. They just learn tools to manage it. And that was really eye-opening for me, because I had been working on my healing for many, many years, and yet I still could see how much I could be triggered. And so once I realized that, it was very helpful for me, because now I thought, okay, because I would spend too much of my time wondering and worrying about why I was still being triggered when I had been doing so much work, and why this thing still bothered me, or why these kind of things still upset me so much. But now that I understand that trauma doesn't ever really leave us, but we learn how to cope with it, now I can have a lot more compassion on myself, and rather than waste my energy, focus, and time trying to figure out why I'm still being triggered and what I can do to quit being triggered, I learned to accept it and start going immediately into, okay, I've been triggered. That's normal. Now, what do I do? What are my tools? What are my tools? That's what I'll ask myself as soon as I'm triggered. What are my tools? Complex PTSD syndrome can be a little bit more confusing, because sometimes we are triggered and it's not directly linked. We can't directly link it to a specific situation like I could of that time that I stood on that anthill and had ants crawl up me. So that time I was a definite link. Oh my gosh, that was really weird. I just had a trigger, and I was a link, and I didn't sit there and try it. I remember thinking that was, oh gosh, that's so bizarre. And my nervous system was still shook up, but I didn't waste any energy pounding myself over why did I do that, and why am I not over that? Why couldn't I figure that out? Because it was a direct link. But with complex CPTSD, which is CPTSD, CPTSD. The reason it's complex is it happens when we have been traumatized regularly, over and over and over, in a situation that we could not escape, and it was ongoing for many years. So it wasn't just one situation like the anthill, and then the rest of my life was hunky-dory. I was traumatized over and 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 over again throughout my childhood. And because of that, I have complex PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, where I am unable many times to understand the link between exactly why I feel triggered right now and what it stems from, what happened in my past. My memories, a lot of my memories are gone. They're blocked, they're gone. I cannot retrieve them. And so we have to learn to have compassion. We have to learn to just say, what I went through was rough. And when we get triggered, go, wow, there's just another signpost that what I went through was really tough. It was a really rough place, and wow, I survived that. Now I feel triggered. My fight or flight is up. My anxiety is through the roof. What are the tools that I've learned to calm it? And the more I've done that, just stopped and said, okay, I'm triggered. What are my tools? It's okay. It just is a testimony to what I went through. Now what do I need to calm it? My first calming technique for myself is I breathe. It's to just start breathing into it and just acknowledging that I'm triggered. So the deep breathing and the slowing the breathing down, slowing down that central nervous system again. It is to remove myself from whatever situation that is triggering me, like the ants. I just needed to get away from the ants and remove myself from that. And also to remove my thoughts from it. So I remove myself from what's triggering me. It could be a person that's triggering you, and you'll have to remove yourself from that person. It could be that you're watching something on YouTube and it's triggering you, and you have to remove yourself. You've got to learn to say, okay, this is not healthy for me. It's triggering me. Because when you're in fight or flight mode all the time, you are upping your cortisol levels. You are basically taking years off your life when you spend a lot of time in that type of intense emotion. It's not healthy. It lowers your immune system. It lowers the quality of your life all the way around. And so there's situations that we kind of, like maybe a movie we're watching, that we really want to know the ending of it. We want to know what happens, but our trigger and anxiety is so high around it that we have to just turn it off and say, okay, I can't watch this. I have to do that with, I used to love to watch animal rescue programs. I can't watch them because I get so triggered by them. And I don't know why. I have complex PTSD, so I can't always link a direct link to it, but I am so highly triggered that it'll disturb me. If I continue to watch them, it'll disturb my mind. And I'm a highly sensitive personality as well, so it'll disturb my mind for weeks. So I have learned that when I see them, as much as I want to know the story of what happened to them, I have to say no to myself, to say no. Just be glad that somebody found them and that there's people out there finding these little animals and helping them. But for me, I can't watch that because it brings my anxiety up the roof, like so high. So it's breathing into it. It's removing myself from that situation, depending on what type of trigger we have and what it brings up for us is all going to be contingent on what we do about the triggers. So sometimes there's going to be, like I've said in my other videos, some just rubbing and self-soothing. I like to rock a lot. Sometimes I'll just sit and listen to something that takes my mind off it, and I rock, because rocking is soothing to me. And I'm glad that, I know that somebody might look at me and think, why is she rocking? She have to go to the bathroom or something. But I've learned to really not worry about what people think, because who cares? People are going to think whatever they're going to think about you no matter what you're doing. So I've learned to just say, it doesn't really matter right now. This is soothing for me. So I like to rock. I like to rub myself like in a hugging, nurturing way. So I'll give myself a hug sometimes. I'll do some rocking. I'll do some deep breathing. I will do something that I know gets my mind off things and lifts my vibrations up, such as maybe read a book or watch something funny, or go for a walk, get out in nature. There's a lot of different things that you can do to calm down a trigger. But the main thing I wanted to bring out in this video today is that we need to be compassionate and patient with ourselves and with our triggers. I have one client that has said several times, I get sick of the word trigger. It's almost like it's just overdone, overused. And I can feel that there's a rejection of an aspect of herself in those statements, and not the compassion and the patience with herself that she needs to be able to actually work through those triggers and to be able to heal and really get to a place where she's genuinely cherishing herself and loving herself. So I just want to encourage you, just by this demonstration and of how the mind works, that this thing happened to me. I'm 52 years old, and this thing happened to me when I was like almost 50 years ago. Okay, the first trigger I had was when I was a child, probably, that thing going home and smacking things away and stuff. I think that was probably a year or two after that actual incident. I was a little bit older at that point. And then, smacking the ants of me, that was probably 35 years later, and then here I am 50 years old and I have a PTSD reaction to ants. I'm not doing it on purpose. My body, my mind, what's been recorded there, that's been suppressed and been down in there, that trauma, you never really fully get over trauma. It's there. The memory will never go away. And the pain of fire ants crawling all over my body, as a little tiny child. I don't remember it cognitively. I don't remember the pain. I remember the incident of being on the anthill as if it were a dream, almost dreamlike state. I know it happened, but that's what it looks like in my mind, like this dream that I'm distanced from, or watching it on like a movie where I don't actually remember the pain that I felt. But they were fire ants, and they were all over my body, in and out my eyes, ears, mouth, everywhere. They were attacking me. If you're going to get to a place where you feel happy, that you feel that self-love and self-nurturing that you want to get to, you've got to start with having compassion for the trauma and the abuse and the things that you went through and the way it is going to naturally affect you. Have that compassion on yourself and enjoy your day. I'll talk to you next time.